So welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And we are here at WBC 2022, and we've sat down with Chris Moeller.
Howdy.
Is it pronounced Moeller?
Moeller.
Moeller,
Yep.
okay.
Nicely done.
We got an E after it. And
I know, you never know.
And so he's the designer of a very soon-to-be upcoming game from Compass Games called Brothers at War. And this is Brigade Command in the American Civil War.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
I know your developer is off camera. Do you want to introduce him? Because I know he helps a lot.
Stick your head in. Yeah, he's tremendous help.
Hello, world. We're wearing our shirts.
Nice shirts, yeah.
That shirt on.
We couldn't get everybody at the shot at the table, so...
Yeah.
So this is a two-player American Civil War game, and as you can see, you get a lot of stuff in the box as
A lot
well.
of maps.
Number of different battles. So I wanted to kind of throw it over to you, just to kind of give us a pitch of what we've gotten in this system.
Like the overview.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the turns are 20 minutes. Each strength point is 100 men, and the hexes are 100 yards. So you can tell it's pretty zoomed in. The map's about a mile and a half square.
Nice big hexes, too.
Big hexes.
Big
little,
counters.
little room to roam there.
Yeah. Well, the idea there's only stacking of two, so you can fit two guys
Side
in
by
hex,
side,
and
yeah.
you never have to stack.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fun.
So designed for real playability here.
Absolutely. I'm getting on in years, so you know I need the bigger hexes, bigger print size.
So with the system, how long does a game of this take?
Well, they vary. So Antietam, you can play the entire morning at the cornfield, and that's a pretty long game. It's over 20 brigades, and this is one brigade. A brigade is a number of regiments. So that one takes a while. These will take, what do you think, an hour? How long did it take us to play? An hour or so to play.
So this is
morning Fox's Gap.
most of the day.
Right.
This is
1
to 2
definitely
hours.
an evening. Definitely, you can play almost all of the single scenarios in the evening. So this one has a morning, an early morning, and then a late morning, or late afternoon, and then a whole game. So there's 3 different scenarios you can play with this.
Okay.
There's 4 you can play at Antietam, 3 here, 3 at Mill Springs, 3 at Valverde. So there's actually a lot of different versions of each battle that you can play. So it's like a minimum of 3 different games you can play per map.
So why did you choose these 4 specific battles? What was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, well, I came up with the mechanics, and then I really wanted to see how flexible they were. Because I was thinking in terms of series. So like, is this something I could port to other things? I don't want it to be just so battle specific that it falls apart if you stretch it or press it at all.
Yeah.
So this is the biggest one. So it had to handle a really large engagement. Versus Valverde on the far extreme, which is just 1 brigade each. Lots of irregular troops. It's all cavalry on the Texan side. Very different. So that was, and then I wanted to see this. This has a lot of green troops. Weather, the map really interested me. Fox's Gap has also always interested me. This was actually the first one I developed.
Okay.
Was Fox's Gap, and then I went to Antietam to see.
Well, it's cool. These are all in 1862.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Obviously, the name
Right.
denotes that. But you got a couple in Maryland. You got one in Kentucky, and then you got one in Texas.
And it's all southern invasions of the North. So that's the theme. Is that
I'm sorry. Yeah.
New Mexico.
New Mexico. I said Texas. I apologize for that.
They wanted it to be Texas, but they got kicked out. That was the
I think
It
everyone
didn't really work out.
Everyone from Texas wants us to be Texas.
Yeah.
So would you mind kind of walking us through the structure of a turn and what that would look like?
Sure. So turns go real quickly. There's a guys get marked as they get finished. So units activate individually. First, a brigade you'll pull from the cup.
So chit pull
from the
to
cup.
activate.
It goes onto this track here. So each one that would be Scammons Brigade activating. As these get pulled, they come down the track, and when they hit one of these,
Which is a watch symbol.
Yeah, it's a watch symbol. These go in the cup, and they're countdown markers.
Oh, okay.
So 1 starts in the cup, and the turn ends when 2 come out. So as you go down the turn, more get added, and the turn becomes more likely to end at that point. when you land on one of these cards, everybody draws a card.
Okay.
So everybody will have 3 of these battle cards, which just do, small things like you can force somebody to retreat, you can get some extra saves, so everybody gets cards like that. So at the beginning of the turn, anybody, if Scammon had gone before, when his marker comes out of the cup, these markers come off, so they're not finished. When you have one of these markers on, you can't opportunity fire if someone comes toward you. So getting these off is important, and a lot of times you won't activate somebody, even like when Scammon goes, he may not activate because he wants to be able to protect against a Confederate unit coming toward him. So those will get removed. If somebody is disrupted, these flipped over to disrupted. They get a chance to rally, and if they fail, this just flips over and they're finished for that turn, and then it'll come off the next turn. Then you activate units either individually or as stacks. So let's say Scammon was going, you would start moving these guys. The firepower for the 30th Ohio here is 5, and his movement is 4. And this symbol shows that he's unformed. This means he's formed. And you can see his firepower went up 1 when he formed. But this is better for moving across country. You're a little less staying power, but you can go into woods, you can go across fences and walls without paying anything. Artillery has limbered on the back, obviously. This is a cavalry unit here, so he's dismounted cavalry, so he's just like an unformed infantry when he's dismounted. When he's mounted, he becomes an 8 and
Very
can go
mobile, yeah.
carrying around. And that's Pelham's horse artillery, which flips just at 6 instead of 4.
Okay. I noticed there's a card over here that has off-board artillery.
Yeah, which is a strange thing for the Civil War. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all direct fire, right? We're used to it with World War II, but the way that works is because of the scale again, a number of these battles, particularly in Antietam and Fox's Gap, there were very large guns firing from off-board, or from off-board, from a distance that I couldn't put on here. So, for example, at Fox's Gap, there's a hex here. It says Turner's Gap has the artillery symbol, 11 hexes. So that means that this gun is 11 hexes away from here. The card shows that it's at level 3, which is this level, so you can tell line of sight. And he's able to fire. Guns have a range. Infantry all fire at 3. Artillery has a range. So this is a big parrot. It has a range of 10. You can fire. There's a card here. You can fire. Thank you, Kurt. There's a. If you're within 3, that's musket range. That's a +1 firepower for canister.
Yep.
Out to the gun's printed range is effective range, so there's no modifier there. Out to double that is long range. He's -1 to hit. So everything in the game, every single roll, without exception, is a D6 looking for 5 or 6.
And various DRMs as well.
There's some DRMs.
From range,
you'll get
rangers,
pluses and minuses, but that's what you're always looking for. So
Okay.
at long range, you're going to only hit on 6s because -1 to hit. And then out to triple range, which is extreme, you're -1 to hit, but you also maximum 1 hit. You can't do any more than
Got
that,
it.
no matter how
Cool.
many you roll. So these guys can fire from here with their 10. This is already 11, so they're already out of their effective range. But you just count out and you say, okay, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's 17 range to here, and he just fires like any other cannon out to there. Those guys down at all of them. So this guy was off at Turner's Gap, which was sort of across a valley from Fox's Gap where we're fighting. So Lane's Georgian guns were up here.
Just across the valley.
Just across the valley.
Yep.
So they were basically peppering this road the whole morning. And then way down where the 9th Corps was coming up this mountain to fight, this is just the leading edge of it, they parked a couple of guns and they were trying to suppress him. So that's what those 2 guns are. So they can really only fire at Turner's Gap and try to suppress this gun.
Got it.
And they're also at extreme range, so
Okay.
that's what the off-board artillery is. And the same thing occurs there's some off-board artillery there from Nicodemus Hills over here, the Pry House is over there.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I noticed on these core sheets, there's spaces for casualties, and does this measure cohesion and fighting effectiveness? And they break at a certain point, I'm assuming.
Yeah, the focus
or
is
become
on,
ineffective.
Yeah, the focus is on the brigade. So the brigade is the formation. So Scammon's brigade. What you have here on the display is you have skirmishers that can get deployed.
Oh, okay.
So these guys can deploy a skirmisher out, and they move around. They have a zone that small arms can't fire through until they get rid of the skirmisher, so they can screen from enemy infantry fire. If they get killed, they go back here. And at some point, what they did historically is once the formations got close together, they would bring in the skirmishers, and they would just become line troops. So he can be spent as a reserve if he's on your track. So if he's not deployed, you can use him as an extra reserve. And that's what these are. This track is when somebody gets a hit. So let's say this guy gets a hit. The first thing that would happen if he's formed, he flips over to unformed. So formed infantry has a little bit more staying power than unformed troops. If he takes another hit, he's disrupted, and if he takes another hit, he's killed. But if he has reserves available, you can spend a reserve to prevent that hit.
Got it.
So the guy can stay around as long as the brigade is more or less healthy.
Yeah.
But once the brigade gets to here, it becomes exhausted.
It can't be killed.
It can't be killed. It loses one of its markers from the cup.
Okay.
And then at the end of every turn, it has to roll to see if it stays around, if it recovers, has a one chance of recovering, or it disbands and just sort of goes away.
Okay. So what do you feel like the system does really well? What for the player? What?
It's fun.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's fun, and that's the primary thing. There's a lot of, like, the cards add a lot of unknown elements. The chit draw adds a lot of unknown elements. You don't know when the turn's going to end exactly.
Yep.
Obviously, when you're rolling lots of dice, you can't really tell. You know, it looks like I should just destroy this guy.
Then you roll
and then
all
you
ones.
whiff, and the other guy kicks you out. So
You don't know anything about that, do you?
No, absolutely nothing. Never whiffed in my life.
So there's a lot of back and forth, forth. But the games play out pretty historically generally, which is I think, I developed these because I wanted to know what went on. You know, I would go, because I live in Pittsburgh, so I would go to Antietam a lot. I'm also a painter, so I go do landscape paintings on these battlefields. And,
Okay.
I was confused a lot of times by what actually happened. I couldn't, it's hard to tell when you're actually sitting there. So what these represent is pretty much what you can see when you're on the battlefield. You know, like when you were at Antietam, if you were at the cornfield, you don't know what's going to happen.
You can't see
on the far
beyond,
side. You have no idea. So it's really the experience as a brigade experience, what they would see, what they would know, what was happening on that ground. Yeah.
So how do you decide how many dice you chuck when you're doing a combat?
It's equal to the firepower.
Okay.
So firepower is straight up. You can't, formed troops have another ability, which is they can combine fire. So if they're in the same hex or adjacent hexes, they can fire. These guys can fire 5 instead of firing individually. Very powerful. So you're going to roll a lot of dice. The way it works is, if these guys were firing at each other, let's say he fired at him. He'd roll 2 dice looking for 5s. You'd say, okay, 1 hit. This guy then gets saves, which there's a card that you kind of go through to calculate. First of all, did this guy move? If he did, you get 1 dice as a save.
Okay.
You look at the range. The range is, again, infantry are up to 3 total. So you basically get 1 dice per every intervening hex. So there's another dice for that. Formation, this guy is unformed. He gets 1 dice for being unformed. Terrain, he's uphill from him, so he gets 1 dice for that. There's a stone wall, that's 2 more dice. So whatever, you'd add 2 more dice. See how it works? And then you have the option to retreat 2 if you want to get a further dice.
Oh, okay.
So retreating is not a combat result; it's a decision. Do you want to pull out, or do you want to hold?
Very interesting.
That is interesting, yeah.
And then you roll looking for, okay,
You saved.
I
that.
saved, he's fine.
Okay.
This guy would then get marked finished, and then he would go on to the next guy.
Okay.
So it's that's all very, straightforward.
Yeah.
It makes sense, and again, you just sort of, you don't have to calculate anything. So it's just really, you're kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah,
do I
no
have enough?
CRTs, no odds. It's just you're
no
looking for
tables.
5s and 6s with a modifier.
Yep.
You're going to roll. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you can kind of tell, if you're in the trees, you're going to have better defense.
Yeah.
You're behind the wall, you get better
Yeah.
defense. So,
So I understand this game is like ready to go, right?
It's ready to go. I mean, this is actually a printed copy.
Okay. Yeah.
And it looks stunning, by the way.
It does,
As
yeah.
if you can't tell. The maps are all a slightly different color palette. They look great. Great looking play aids. Even the little cards for reference and the canvas.
Well, I did all
huge.
the art as well, so I appreciate you saying
Nice.
that.
No,
Yeah.
which you've knocked it out of the park,
Well,
frankly.
and I think, like for me, one of the things that's really important is being able to develop the game with the visuals changing along as you go, so you can really see what's working, what isn't working. When I'm doing it on my own, I
Nice.
can say, oh, that doesn't work.
So did you do this painting?
No,
you
I
said
did not.
landscapes.
No,
Okay.
no.
Yeah,
I didn't do that painting.
Got it. That's the only part. You did the graphic design, the layout.
Yes,
Okay,
right,
very nice.
right.
Very nice.
Yeah.
But my understanding is but it's in the warehouse.
It's ready.
This
to
is
go.
coming
it's ready to
like
go.
a week
any
or
day.
two.
Yeah.
a week or two.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you very much for sitting down,
thank you
kind
so
of
much.
talking
Yeah.
us through this. It looks excellent and eminently playable as well, which is exciting
Pretty
because
fast, yeah.
some of the
That was a
ACW
big-
games are kind of very big and it's not
Right.
But,
That was a big word you just used.
Oh yes, gregarious.
Okay, well, please stop.
So thank you very
Great
much for
looking
sitting
game.
down
Thanks,
with
guys.
us and talking
Appreciate
us through this. You can look forward to this game coming out extremely soon. It might even be out before this video is. So thank you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.